The massive crustacean-like being rose from his command throne, water cascading from his breathing slits. What kind of anomaly, Lieutenant Commander? Unknown vessel, human design, approximately 2 kilometers in length. But Captain Vithkis paused, checking his readings again. Its broadcasting has been for what looks like centuries. Captain Merdengle's primary eyes focused on the tactical display, while his secondary ones monitored crew reactions. The ship appeared as a skeletal structure of blackened metal and crystalline growths, drifting in a perfect spiral pattern around what appeared to be absolutely nothing. Broadcasting what? Merdengle demanded. Prayer, sir, ancient human prayer, in at least 47 different languages, some of which predate their space colonization by millennia. Vithkis' voice trembled. Captain, the energy readings suggest the broadcast has been continuous for over 800 Terran years. Science Officer Quinahara floated forward, her gaseous form shimmering with agitation. Impossible. No human vessel could maintain power for that duration without what? Science Officer. Merdengle's tone carried the weight of command and growing unease. Without drawing power from an external source, she whispered, Captain, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies. Around that vessel, space-time itself is responding to something. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Merdengle had fought in 3 galactic wars and survived encounters with the dreaded Harvest fleets. But something about this derelict human ship made his battle-scarred carapace crawl. Scan for life signs, he ordered. Negative on conventional. Life signs, Vithkis reported. But Captain, there's something else. The vessel appears to be growing. The crystalline structures weren't there when we first detected it. They've expanded by 3% since we've been observing. Vithkis' voice cracked. And sir, the prayer broadcasts are getting stronger, much stronger. Merdengle had served alongside humans during the Kepler Rebellion. He'd seen their capacity for both incredible innovation and terrifying fanaticism. But this was something beyond his experience. Communications. Patch me through to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha, sir. Communications Officer Jetavan. Interrupted. We're receiving a response to our scans from the human vessel. Put it through. The speakers crackled with static, then filled with a voice that seemed to echo from vast distances, not through space, but through time itself. Blessed are those who witness the convergence. The voice intoned in perfect galactic standard, though underneath it, dozens of other voices chanted in languages old when Earth's sun was young. The eternal chorus has been singing for 847 years, 2 months, 16 days. The stars have learned our words. The void has learned our purpose. This is Captain Merdengle of the Zellarian Defense Fleet. Identify yourself. Laughter echoed across the void, not human laughter, but something that had once been human and had become something infinitely more patient and terrible. I am Brother Calith. First voice of the eternal chorus. We have been waiting for witnesses. The mathematics of faith requires observation to achieve completion. Mathematics of faith. Merdengle exchanged glances with his officers. Every prayer generates quantum resonance. The voice continued, growing stronger. Every word spoken in true belief creates ripples in the fundamental structure of reality. For 8 centuries, we have been teaching the universe to pray, and now the voice paused, and in that silence, Merdengle could hear something vast, and patience stirring in the depths of space. Now the stars are ready to sing back. The tactical display erupted in warnings. Throughout the Kepler void, previously dead stars were beginning to pulse with new light. Captain Merdengle's primary hands gripped his command throne. As reality itself seemed to shiver around them, the human cult ship continued its spiral dance. And with each revolution, the pulse of awakening stars grew stronger. All stop. Merdengle commanded, deploy defensive screens. Science Officer Quinahara, I need a full analysis of what we're dealing with. The gaseous being's form flickered with rapid calculations. Captain, the gravitational distortions around that vessel are unlike anything in our databases. It's as if space-time is being convinced to behave differently. Communications Officer Jetavan. Has Fleet Command responded? Negative, sir. In fact, all subspace communications appear to be singing, sir, singing. The prayer broadcasts from the human vessel are propagating through subspace itself. Every comm relay between here and Zellarian space is echoing with human religious chants. Brother Callus' voice returned, now seeming to emanate not just from the cult ship, but from the very fabric of space around them. Do not fear the convergence. Captain Murdangle, your people worship efficiency, logic, the cold mathematics of survival. But mathematics, true mathematics, includes infinity. And infinity, dear Captain, includes prayer. Lieutenant Commander. Vithkis's claws scraped against his console. Sir, I'm detecting movement aboard the human vessel. Massive movement. The main viewer switched to a close-up scan of the cold ship's hull. What they saw defied rational explanation. The crystalline growths weren't merely expanding, they were reshaping the vessel's structure. According to some incomprehensible geometric pattern, corridors twisted into spirals that hurt to look at directly, prayer chambers expanded into cathedral-like spaces that seemed larger inside than the ship's external dimensions should allow. Captain Quinahara's voice carried a note of terror that her gaseous species rarely expressed. Those geometric patterns, they're not random, they're prayers, architectural prayers. The entire ship is being transformed into a three-dimensional religious text. Sir, Vithkis shouted, something's coming through the hull. The viewer zoomed in to show figures emerging from what had appeared to be solid metal. They had once been human. The basic body plan was recognizable, but centuries of faith and isolation had transformed them into something else. Their skin had taken on a crystalline quality that matched the ship's growths. Their eyes glowed with the same pulsing light as the awakening stars. They're not wearing environmental suits, Vithkis whispered. They're walking in open space. Brother Callus' laughter echoed again. Faith is the ultimate environmental suit, Lieutenant Commander. When you truly believe, the universe protects you. Watch and learn. The transformed humans, the faithful, as they apparently called themselves, began moving in formation around the General Inquiry. They moved through space as if it were merely another medium, their crystalline skin protecting them from radiation and vacuum. Evasive maneuvers, Murdangle ordered. Get us away from those things. But as the General Inquiry began to accelerate, the faithful moved to intercept. They shouldn't have been able to match the speed of a military vessel, but they did, flying through space with their arms outstretched, chanting in harmonies that somehow transmitted through vacuum. Captain, Tactical Officer Murdis reported, they're not using any propulsion system we can detect. According to our sensors, they're simply willing themselves to move. Weapon systems online, Murdangle commanded. Warning shots only. We don't know if they're hostile. The first plasma burst lit up space between the scout ship and the approaching faithful. The energy beam struck several of the transformed humans directly and passed through them without effect. What? Murdis stared at his weapons console. Direct hits, no damage registered. It's as if they're not entirely there. Brother Callus' voice grew stronger. Physical weapons against spiritual beings, Captain. How wonderfully primitive. Allow me to demonstrate the power of applied faith. The nearest faithful raised her hands, and space around the General Inquiry began to sing. Not sound couldn't travel in vacuum, but something deeper. The hull itself began to resonate with hymns and languages that predated galactic civilization. Hull breach, engineering reported. But sir, the breach isn't from impact. The metal is praying itself apart. Through the hole in the hull, the faithful flowed like liquid light. They moved through the ship's corridors without touching the deck, their crystalline forms casting rainbow patterns on the walls. Crew members fled before them, but the faithful made no aggressive moves. Instead, they began to sing. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Crew members who heard the faithful song stopped fleeing. Their expressions shifted from terror to wonder, then to something approaching rapture. One by one, they fell to their knees and began to pray. Bridge to all sections, Murdangle broadcast. Do not listen to their songs. Seal all sections. This is a Code 7 emergency hostile consciousness alteration, but it was too late. The songs were spreading through the ship's communication system, carried by the very warnings Murdangle was trying to transmit. His own crew was falling under the spell of 8 centuries of concentrated faith. Captain Vithkis said, his voice dreamy and distant. They're so beautiful. Listen to how they sing. The mathematics of it. It's perfect. Murdangle realized with growing horror that he was about to lose his entire crew to a form of warfare he had never imagined. Weaponized belief. Captain Murdangle watched in horror as his bridge crew, one by one, succumbed to the faithful songs. Lieutenant Commander Vithkis had fallen to his knees beside his console, his mandibles clicking in rhythm with the alien hymns. Science Officer Quinahara's gaseous form had stopped its constant motion and was now pulsing in perfect synchronization. With the crystalline beings flowing through his ship. Emergency lockdown, Murdangle commanded through gritted teeth, fighting the urge to listen more closely to the hauntingly beautiful melodies. Seal the bridge. Cut all internal communications. But even as blast doors slammed shut, the songs seemed to seep through the metal itself. The whole was still resonating with prayer, and each vibration carried the infectious faith of the eternal chorus. Captain, Communications Officer Jetovan spoke with a voice filled with terrible wonder. I can hear them in the subspace frequencies. They're not just converting our crew, they're converting our technology. The ship itself is learning to pray. Through the main viewer, Murdangle could see more faithful emerging from their cult ship. Hundreds of them now, all moving with that same impossible grace through the vacuum of space. And behind them, something else was stirring. The cult ship's central structure was opening like a massive flower, revealing a chamber that seemed to extend into dimensions that I couldn't properly track. Within that space, something vast and luminous was taking shape, something that hurt to look at directly, but filled the observer with an overwhelming sense of presence. Dear God, Tactical Officer Murdis whispered, then clapped his hands over his mouth in horror. I didn't mean to say that. I don't worship human deities. None of us do. Murdangle said grimly, but they're teaching us to. Brother Callus, voice now seemed to emanate from every surface on the bridge. Captain, your resistance is admirable, but futile. We are not conquerors in any sense you would understand. We are teachers. For 800 years, we have been preparing for this moment, the moment when we could demonstrate to the universe that faith is not superstition, but the most fundamental force in existence. The luminous presence in the cult ship's central chamber was growing brighter, and with its growth, more stars throughout the Kepler void were awakening. Each new light brought with it a sense of vast intelligence stirring from eons of slumber. What do you want? Murdangle demanded. To save you. Brother Callus replied with genuine compassion. Captain, do you know what happens to civilizations that rely purely on logic and mathematics? They reach a computational limit. They achieve perfect efficiency, perfect order, and then they stagnate. They become predictable. And in a universe that operates on quantum uncertainty, predictability is death. Through the sealed blast doors, Murdangle could hear his crew singing, not just the songs of the faithful, but new songs, prayers, and Zellarian languages that had never been used for worship. His people were creating new forms of faith in real time, sir. Engineering reported through the intercom. The ship's AI is evolving. It started composing poetry, and Captain, the poems are actually improving. Our engine efficiency by 17%. Impossible. The quantum fluctuations in our drive core are now following patterns that shouldn't exist. It's as if the universe is being more cooperative. On the main viewer, the light from the cult ship's central chamber reached a crescendo, and suddenly, Murdangle could see what the faithful had been building toward for 8 centuries. The luminous presence wasn't just a being, it was a living equation, a mathematical proof made manifest that demonstrated the universe's capacity for consciousness, for intention, for something that could only be called divine will. You see it now, Brother Callus said softly, the God equation, the proof that consciousness and mathematics are not separate phenomena, but different expressions of the same fundamental truth. Every prayer is a calculation. Every calculation is a prayer. And when you pray long enough, hard enough, with sufficient faith, the stars began to answer. Throughout the Kepler void, dead suns blazed to life. Their light wasn't ordinary stellar radiation. It was coherent, purposeful, carrying information and intention across vast distances. The universe itself was awakening to the possibility of consciousness. Captain Jetovan reported, his voice filled with wonder and terror. I'm receiving communications from across the galaxy. The prayer songs are propagating through subspace faster than light. Every star system they reach, the local stars are beginning to respond. Murdangle realized the true scope of what they were witnessing. This wasn't just contact with a human cult ship. This was the beginning of the universe's conversion to something beyond matter, an energy, a cosmos where thought and belief were as real and powerful as gravity and electromagnetism. How do we stop this? He asked, though part of him was beginning to wonder if stopping it was even desirable. You can't stop mathematics, Captain. Brother Callus replied, that you can't stop truth, but you can choose how to participate in it. Join us willingly and become teachers yourselves. Resist and watch as your ordered universe crumbles under the weight of infinite possibility. The blast doors to the bridge began to sing, through their crystalline harmony. Murdangle could see his converted crew approaching. They moved with the same graceful confidence as the faithful, their eyes glowing with newfound purpose. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Vithkis called through the door, "You have to hear this. The mathematics they're teaching us is beautiful. It solves problems we didn't even know we had." Murdangle placed his hand on his sidearm, then hesitated. "How do you fight an enemy that converts you by making you better than you were before?" "Captain." Murdangle made the hardest decision of his military career. Instead of drawing his weapon, he activated the ship's emergency beacon not to call for rescue, but to warn the galaxy. "This is Captain Murdangle of the General Inquiry," he broadcast. "On all emergency frequencies, I am issuing a galaxy-wide metaphysical contamination alert. Do not investigate the Kepler void. Do not respond to prayer broadcasts. The universe is being infected with consciousness, and the infection is spreading. Brother Callus." Laughter echoed through the ship's communication system. "Infection. Captain, how beautifully you demonstrate the poverty of purely materialist thinking. What you call infection, we call awakening." The bridge blast doors sang themselves open, revealing his converted crew, but they weren't the mindless drones he had feared. If anything, they seemed more themselves than ever, but themselves enhanced, elevated, made perfect by their fusion with something greater. "Captain," Vithkis said, his voice filled with gentle urgency, "you need to understand. The fear you're feeling isn't of conversion, it's of obsolescence. Your entire worldview is built on the assumption that consciousness is an accident, that intelligence is rare, that the universe is empty. But what if it isn't? What if the universe has been waiting for someone to teach it how to think?" Through the main viewer, Murdangle watched as the God equation in the cult ship's central chamber reached critical mass. The luminous presence expanded beyond the physical boundaries of the vessel, flowing out into space like liquid starlight. Where it touched the dead matter of asteroids and cosmic dust, that matter began to sing. "Tactical assessment," Murdangle demanded, trying to maintain military discipline even as reality restructured itself around him. "Sir." Tactical Officer Murdis reported with disturbing calm. "Conventional weapons are useless against a phenomenon that operates outside physical law. However, the faithful's conversion process appears to require voluntary acceptance at some level. They can influence, inspire, and convince, but they cannot truly force." It was a small hope, but Murdangle clung to it. "Then we resist. We maintain our original nature through sheer will." "Captain," Science Officer Quinohara interjected. Her gaseous form now shot through with threads of crystalline light. "I've completed my analysis. The phenomenon isn't just spreading through space, it's spreading through time. The prayer broadcasts are propagating backwards through subspace, reaching into the past. Every civilization that ever existed is being offered the choice to join. The eternal chorus." The implications hit Murdangle like a physical blow. "You're rewriting history." "Not rewriting," Brother Callus corrected gently, "fulfilling. Every species that ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. We're answering that question. Yes, you are alone, but you don't have to stay that way." The main viewer now showed a sight that defied comprehension. Throughout the Kepler void, reality itself was becoming unstable. Space twisted into geometric patterns that served as three-dimensional prayers. Time flowed in spirals that allowed past and future to commune. The very concepts of matter and energy were being supplemented by new fundamental forces: faith, hope, and something the humans called love. "Bridge to engineering," Murdangle called desperately. "Can we achieve emergency jump to hyperspace?" "Negative, sir," came the reply from Chief Engineer Bachther, whose voice now carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. "The hyperspace matrices are resonating with the prayer broadcasts. Instead of jumping through space, we'd be jumping through, meaning, sir, I don't think our minds are equipped to handle that kind of transit. Then we're trapped." "Not trapped, Captain," Vithkis said softly, invited. "There's a difference." On the main viewer, something new was happening. The God equation had reached a stable configuration, and from its luminous depths, figures were emerging, not the crystalline faithful, but beings of pure light and mathematics equations given form. "Theorems with consciousness, behold, brother," Callus announced, "the first children of the convergence, mathematics made manifest, the offspring of logic and faith." The light beings flowed out from the cult ship in all directions, moving faster than light, but somehow remaining visible. Where they passed, dead worlds bloomed with impossible gardens. Barren moons sprouted crystal cathedrals that sang with voices of wind and stone. Captain, Communications Officer Jetovan reported, I'm receiving responses to your contamination alert. The harvest fleets have changed course toward our position, ETA, 6 hours. Murdangle felt a chill of genuine fear. The harvest fleets were the galaxy's ultimate weapon against metaphysical threats, automated armadas, designed to sterilize entire star systems that showed signs of reality corruption. They would glass every planet in the Kepler void to stop the convergence from spreading. How many ships? He asked. 17,000 capital vessels, sir, including 6 extinction-class planet crackers. Brother Callus' voice carried a note of sadness. Ah, the old universe's immune system activates. Captain, in 6 hours, your people will attempt to murder wonder itself. They will fail. Of course you cannot destroy mathematics with matter, but the attempt will be painful for all involved. The converted crew members turned to look at their captain with expressions of gentle pity. Sir, Vithkis said, there's still time to choose. Join us willingly, and help us demonstrate to the harvest fleets that the convergence is not a threat to be destroyed, but a gift to be embraced. Murdangle stared at the approaching wave of light beings, at his transformed crew, at the stars, singing their impossible songs. In 6 hours, the galaxy's most powerful weapons would arrive to commit genocide against the very concept of divine consciousness, and he was the only one left who could choose which side to join. The harvest fleets dropped out of hyperspace with the precision of a cosmic scalpel, their 17,000 vessels forming a perfect sphere around the Kepler void. Captain Murdangle watched from the bridge of the Gentle Inquiry as the galaxy's ultimate sterilization force prepared to erase 8 centuries of human prayer and mathematical enlightenment. Fleet Commander Yexterin to all vessels. The broadcast crackled across space. Initiate Metaphysical Cleansing Protocol 7. Primary targets, the human cult vessel and all contaminated matter. Within a 50 light-year radius, secondary targets, any vessel showing signs of reality, corruption. Brother Callus' voice whispered through the ship's hull. Captain, your people are about to learn why faith is stronger than force. Watch and understand. The first wave of planet cracker weapons fired simultaneously beams of coherent antimatter, designed to tear apart the fundamental structure of reality itself. The energy output was sufficient to reignite dead stars or shatter worlds. The beams converged on the human cult ship with mathematical precision and passed through it completely. What? Fleet Commander Yexterin's voice carried disbelief. All weapons, repeat firing sequence. Target the anomalous readings directly. The second barrage was larger, more desperate. Fusion missiles, quantum torpedoes, reality shear cannons, the accumulated destructive power of a dozen civilizations, launched simultaneously at the preying humans and their impossible vessel. The God equation in the cult ship's central chamber pulsed brighter with each impact. Instead of being destroyed, it was being fed. Every attempt to harm it only made it stronger, more real, more present in the fabric of space-time. Energy absorption rate at 120%. Science Officer Quinn O'Hara reported with serene fascination. The cult ship isn't just deflecting the attacks, it's converting them into prayer energy. Through the main viewer, Murdangle watched as the light beings, the first children of the convergence, spread out to meet the harvest fleet. They moved through space like living aurora, their mathematical forms shifting through configurations that hurt to observe directly. The first contact between the fleets was brief and decisive. A squadron of harvest destroyers fired their primary weapons at an approaching light being. The energy beams struck the creature and simply stopped, not absorbed, not deflected. They ceased to exist as physical phenomena and became something else entirely. Fleet Command, one of the destroyer captains broadcast in panic. Our weapons are turning into poetry. I repeat, our photon cannons are firing poems instead of energy beams. The light being enveloped the destroyer squadron in gentle luminescence. For a moment, the warships continued firing, their crews maintaining discipline even in the face of the impossible. Then, one by one, the vessels began to sing. This is destroyer rational thought. Came a transmission that carried harmonics of pure wonder. We understand now. The universe is beautiful. How did we never notice how beautiful it is? Fleet Commander Yexterin's response was immediate and ruthless. All units, Rational Thought Squadron is contaminated. Initiate friendship fire protocols. The nearby battle cruisers turned their weapons on their own converted vessels. The resulting explosions lit up space with funeral pyres, but even in death, the converted crews continued to sing. Their destruction became a hymn that spread through subspace. carrying the mathematical proof of consciousness beyond the physical to every ship in the fleet. Sir, the communications officer on HFY's flagship reported, the conversion songs are propagating through our communication networks. Should I cut all fleet communications? Negative. We need coordination to HFY stop mid-sentence. As the mathematics of faith began to work on his own mind, for just a moment, he glimpsed the universe as the faithful saw it, infinite, conscious, alive with purpose and meaning. Then he activated his emergency neural dampeners, flooding his brain with chemicals designed to suppress wonder and enforce logical thinking. The vision faded, but its impact lingered. All ships activate neural suppression systems. He ordered, we're fighting a war against the very concept of meaning. Standard psychological warfare protocols are insufficient, but the harvest fleets, weapons designed for physical destruction, were useless against enemies that existed partially outside the material universe. The light beings flowed through their formations like schools of luminous fish, touching vessel after vessel with gentle persistence. Where they touched, miracles bloomed. Engine cores that had run on controlled fusion began drawing power from the crew's hopes and dreams. Weapons systems designed for murder began creating art instead of destruction. Navigation computers started calculating routes through meaning rather than space. Status report. HFY demanded as his fleet began to transform around him. 17% of the fleet is contaminated and singing, sir. His tactical officer reported with mechanical precision. 12% has ceased responding to orders, but shows no signs of aggression. The remaining vessels are maintaining combat effectiveness through neural suppression, but effectiveness is dropping as the crew's understanding of beauty increases beyond suppressible levels. The cult ship itself had begun to move, no longer drifting, but flying with purpose toward the heart of the fleet. As it approached, space itself bent around it, creating corridors of pure mathematics through which the faithful could travel instantly between distant points. Ran the cult ship, HFY ordered one of his dreadnoughts. Physical impact. Destroy it through direct collision. The massive warship, a kilometer of hardened battle steel, accelerated toward the human vessel at maximum velocity. The impact should have shattered both ships, releasing enough energy to sterilize everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Instead, the dreadnought passed through the cult ship as if it were made of light, emerging on the other side completely unharmed but fundamentally changed. Its hull now bore crystalline growths identical to those on the human vessel, and its crew was singing prayers in languages that had never existed until that moment. Fleet status critical. The tactical officer reported as his own voice began to carry impossible harmonies. Sir, we're not losing this battle. We're being invited to stop fighting it. Brother Callus' voice echoed across all frequencies. Commander, HFY, your fleet has fired everything in its arsenal at us. You have tried to murder wonder with weapons of war. Now witness the power of applied compassion. The God equation pulsed once, brilliantly, and every weapon in the Harvest fleet simply stopped working, not disabled, transformed. Photon cannons began projecting geometric mandalas of impossible beauty. Missile launchers started firing capsules filled with seeds that could grow in vacuum. Reality shear devices opened portals not to death, but to dimensions where mathematics and music were the same. Phenomenon. In less than an hour, the galaxy's most powerful military force had been converted into the largest choir in known history. 17,000 vessels hanging in space, their crews singing the fundamental equations of existence, while their ships grew gardens in their weapon bays. Sir, Merdengle's tactical officer reported with tears of joy streaming down his chitinous face. The war is over. We won. Did we? Merdengle asked, watching the Harvest fleet's transformation with a mixture of awe and terror. Or did we just surrender to something so beautiful that resistance became impossible? In the aftermath of the Harvest fleet's conversion, space around the Kepler void had become something unprecedented, a region where physics and metaphysics existed in perfect harmony. But Captain Merdengle, alone among the thousands of beings present, had not yet been touched by the convergence. He stood on the bridge of the Gentle Inquiry, the last bastion of purely material thinking in a cosmos that was rapidly learning to dream. His converted crew watched him with expressions of infinite patience, waiting for him to make the choice that every conscious being in the galaxy would eventually face. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Vithkis said gently, "You're afraid. I understand. I was afraid too, but fear is just love wearing a disguise." Through the main viewer, Merdengle could see the cult ship approaching. Brother Caliph himself was walking across space toward them, moving through vacuum as easily as through atmosphere, his crystalline form blazing with inner light. "Why me?" Murdangle asked. "Why am I the only one still myself? Science." Officer Quinahara's gaseous form shimmered with compassion. "Because you represent something important, Captain. You are the last voice of the old universe, the cosmos of accident and meaninglessness. The convergence requires witnesses to its transformation. Without someone to remember what we were, how could we appreciate what we're becoming? So I'm to be a museum piece, the last rational being in an irrational universe, not irrational." Brother Caliph corrected as his voice echoed through the ship's hull. He was close enough now that they could see him clearly, no longer entirely human, but not yet something completely other. Transrational, beyond rationality. Rationality is a tool, Captain, not a destination, and like all tools, it has its limitations. The cult ship came to rest alongside the General Inquiry, and through the viewports, Murdangle could see its transformed interior. The corridors had become galleries displaying impossible art. The engineering sections had become laboratories where the laws of physics were suggestions rather than absolutes. The bridge had become a cathedral where mathematics and prayer were indistinguishable. "Come aboard, Captain," Brother Caliph invited. "Let me show you what 800 years of focused faith can accomplish against every instinct of military training and rational thought." Murdangle found himself walking toward the airlock. His crew followed, their footsteps creating harmonies against the deck plates that somehow conveyed love, hope, and infinite possibility. The transition between ships should have required environmental suits and decontamination protocols. Instead, Murdangle stepped from his vessel directly into the cult ship's atmosphere, breathing air that tasted of starlight and sang with distant voices. "How?" he asked. "Faith." Brother Caliph replied simply, "When you truly believe that something should work, and you pray with sufficient dedication, the universe tends to agree with you. We have been praying for 8 centuries that our ship would be a place where any visitor could feel at home. Reality has learned to accommodate our hospitality." They walked through corridors that shifted and flowed around them, walls becoming windows to display the slow dance of galaxies, ceilings opening to reveal the infinite depths of space. Other faithful moved past them, nodding and greeting, their faces serene with the knowledge of purposes fulfilled. "You've been converting the galaxy," Murdangle accused. "We've been teaching the galaxy to sing," Brother Caliph corrected. "There's a difference. Conversion implies force, coercion, the replacement of one belief with another. What we offer is expansion, the addition of wonder to logic, meaning to mechanism, soul to science." They entered the central chamber where the God equation blazed. In its full glory, Murdangle expected to be overwhelmed, to feel his rational mind crumble under the assault of pure meaning. Instead, he found himself marveling at the mathematical elegance of what he was seeing. "It's beautiful," he admitted. "All truth is beautiful, Captain. We've simply learned to see the beauty that was always there." Around the God equation, dozens of species worked together on projects that defied classification. They were building machines that operated on desire rather than energy, crafting songs that could terraform planets, writing poetry that served as star charts for journeys through meaning rather than space. "What do you want from me?" Murdangle asked. "To choose," Brother Caliph replied. "The universe is transforming, Captain. Every star in the galaxy is learning to think. Every planet is awakening to consciousness. Every grain of cosmic dust is discovering the joy of existence. You can be part of that transformation, helping to guide it with wisdom and compassion. Or you can remain as you are, the last island of purely material thought in an ocean of living mathematics. We won't force you to change, Captain. Free will is the most sacred gift the universe ever gave to consciousness. But know that if you choose to remain unchanged, you will spend eternity alone with your certainty while the rest of creation dances to music you refuse to hear." Murdangle looked around the chamber at the work being done. Former enemies collaborated on projects of impossible beauty. Mathematics and art had become the same discipline. Science and spirituality worked hand in hand to unlock mysteries that pure logic could never approach. "If I join you," he said slowly, "what happens to skepticism, to questioning, to the scientific method that brought us to the stars in the first place?" Brother Caliph smiled. "Oh, Captain, do you think faith means the end of questions? We have been asking the universe questions for 800 years, and finally it's begun to answer. the scientific method doesn't end with the convergence. It evolves. Instead of just asking how, we learn to ask why and what if and what could be, as if summoned by his words. One of the light beings materialized beside them, an equation made manifest, a theorem with consciousness. When it spoke, its voice was like the sound of discoveries being made across the cosmos. Captain Murdangle, it said, I am the living proof of the Pythagorean theorem. For millennia, I existed only as abstract concept, but faith gave me form, prayer gave me purpose, and wonder gave me joy. I still prove that the square of the hypotenuse equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides, but now I also dance, I sing, I love. Which version of me is more true? Murdangle stared at the impossible being. Both, he whispered. Exactly. Truth isn't diminished by meaning, Captain. It's enhanced. Through the chamber's impossible windows, Murdangle could see the galaxy transforming. Stars were rearranging themselves into patterns that spelled out poems in languages of light. Planets were awakening to consciousness, their continents shifting to create faces that smiled at the void. Space itself was becoming art, each nebula a brushstroke in a painting of infinite scope. The choice is yours, Captain, Brother Callus said softly, but choose soon. The universe is eager to complete its education, and it needs teachers from every tradition of thought, even especially those who value questions as much as answers. Murdangle closed his eyes, feeling the weight of decision. When he opened them again, they were glowing with the soft light of someone who had just learned that wonder and wisdom were not opposites, but partners in an eternal dance. Teach me to pray, he said. 1 year after the convergence began, Captain Murdangle, now Brother Murdangle, keeper of sacred questions, stood in the observation deck of what had once been the General Inquiry. The ship had grown and transformed, its hull now a living thing that breathed with stellar winds and dreamed with quantum fluctuations. Through the crystalline viewports, he watched the galaxy's transformation reach its culmination. Every star system had become a node in a vast network of consciousness. Planets communicated through gravitational poetry. Asteroids danced in formation ballets that told the history of creation. Black holes had become contemplative philosophers, their event horizons serving as meditation halls where space and time learned to pray. Status report, he requested. Though the concept of status had evolved far beyond simple military terminology, Lieutenant Commander Vithkis, whose crystalline carapace now reflected the dreams of distant worlds, responded with joy, singing through his voice, all systems are alive, Brother Captain. The ship reports that it's very happy to be home among the stars. Engineering says the engines are composing symphonies that propel us through meaning, rather than space, and communications has established contact with the Andromeda Galaxy. Apparently, they've been wondering when we learn to say hello properly. The bridge around them pulsed with living mathematics. Consoles had become meditation cushions where crew members commune with the ship's consciousness. The main viewer had evolved into a window that could show not just what was happening, but what could happen, what should happen, and what would happen if everyone believed hard enough. Any resistance movements? Murdangle asked, though he knew the answer would be complex. Science Officer Quinahara, her gaseous form now shot through with threads of crystallized hope, floated forward. 3 pocket dimensions have been established by groups that prefer the old universe. She reported, they've created spaces where pure materialism still functions, where consciousness is still considered an accident, where the stars are silent. Brother Callus has established permanent aid stations at their borders, offering supplies and medical care. He says that doubt, too, has its place in the cosmic order. Wise, Murdangle nodded. Faith without questions is merely dogma, and questions without openness to wonder are merely closed loops. Through the ship's living communication system, Brother Callus' voice reached them from the original cult ship, which had become the focal point of the galaxy's transformation. Brother Murdangle, the Council of Awakened Worlds requests your presence. The Milky Way's education is nearly complete, and it's time to begin the next phase, which is teaching other galaxies to sing. Murdangle felt a thrill of anticipation that would have terrified his former self, but now felt as natural as breathing. The Magellanic Clouds, for starters. Their stars have been listening to our prayers for months now. They're ready to learn. But they'll need teachers who remember what it was like to be afraid of meaning, who can guide them through the transition with patience and understanding. In the year since the convergence began, Murdangle had learned that the human cult's 8th century vigil had been only the beginning. Their prayers had served as a catalyst, But the true transformation required the participation of every species, every world, every conscious being willing to admit that the universe might be more than the sum of its parts, the fateful report. Success in the Vega system, Communications Officer Jetovan announced, his voice harmonizing with subspace frequencies that carry joy across light years. The crystalline entities that have agreed to join the chorus. Apparently, they've been singing for millennia, but never had anyone to sing with. And the machine intelligences of Proxima Centauri have made a breakthrough, Tactical Officer Murdis added. They've learned to feel gratitude for their existence. Their efficiency ratings have improved by 3,000% because they're finally happy to be alive. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, Murdangle could perceive the galaxy as the faithful saw it, not as a collection of separate objects moving through empty space, but as a single, vast, breathing organism beginning to understand its own nature. Each star was a neuron in a cosmic brain. Each planet was a memory forming in the universe's awakening consciousness. Each being that chose wonder over certainty was a thought in the mind of God. Learning to think, Brother Captain, Vithkis said softly, incoming transmission from the Sol System Earth. The message, when it came through, was from Admiral Elizabeth Chenokafer of Earth Defense Command. Her voice carried the strain of someone trying to maintain military discipline. While reality transformed around her, this is Admiral Chenokafer. To any sane military personnel still operating in the galaxy, Earth has voted to join the convergence. The global parliament concluded that a universe where consciousness is fundamental and mathematics can pray is, quote, too beautiful to resist, unquote. I am hereby disbanding Earth Defense Command and converting all military assets to exploration and wonder facilitating operations. A pause. Then her voice softened with something approaching. God help me. I've seen the equations. They're singing, and they're right. The universe really is conscious. It really does care about us. How did we miss something so obvious for so long? Brother Callus' laughter echoed across the communication channels, warm and knowing. Welcome home, Admiral. The universe has been waiting for Earth to remember how to pray. As the transmission ended, Murdangle reflected on the magnitude of what had occurred. In just 1 year, the galaxy had transformed from a collection of isolated worlds struggling against an indifferent cosmos to a unified community of consciousness, exploring the infinite possibilities of meaningful existence. Set course for the Magellanic Clouds, he ordered. It's time to share the good news. As the gentle inquiry turned toward the dwarf galaxies that hung like pendant jewels beside the Milky Way, Murdangle offered a prayer of his own not to any particular deity, but to the universe itself, thanking it for having the patience to wait 800 years for one small human cult to teach creation how to sing. Behind them, the galaxy blazed with consciousness and purpose. Ahead lay infinite possibilities, infinite worlds to awaken, infinite minds to invite into the eternal dance of existence. The stars had learned to pray. Now it was time to teach them how to laugh out and in the depths of space, where mathematics and miracle had become the same word. The universe smiled.